Black Sails definitely set the tone of what AFI is, and when people envision AFI, whether they picture what we sound like or what look like or what a show is, or when they conceptualize AFI, they're picturing what began at Black Sails in the Sunset and ended up here on this couch. I remember.
I was living in your room.
Yeah, you were living in the Clavit.
They were on tour.
During Black Sails in the Sunset.
I just kind of moved into his room. We call it the Clavit because it was a combination of a closet and a cave. So I was living in there in squalor.
Yeah.
And he was coming home from tour, so I'm like, I got to move out of the Clavit because he's coming back, so I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, because I was just kind of like squatting in a squat.
Yeah, I would let people. We would squat in this squat, and when I was gone, all the time, I'd let people stay there.
I just locked my door.
That's really selfish of you, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's not really communal.
So, you guys came back.
So we came back. We knew we were no longer going to have Mark in the band, and we needed a guitarist, and we needed someone who could write, and we needed someone who could play what we were playing and actually help us continue forward. And Hunter, you were in.
I was in.
You were in.
I lived upstairs.
And Hunter lived upstairs. This place was madness. There was the nerve agents lived there, and there was a lawyer who lived there who had a Porsche somehow and would come home with black eyes, and
it was very shabby.
Various bohemians and miscreants.
Very shabby.
Yeah. But I had always wanted to work with Jade. We had grown up together, and as I mentioned earlier, he was in this great band from the town that we went to high school in. And he was also living in our room, my room, and we asked Jade if he wanted to join the band. He said, all right.
I just graduated college, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no real plans. My plan was kind of vaguely to write books, be an author, but I wasn't really being that serious about it. So it kind of all worked out. They came, asked me to be in the band. I was already living in the house with them. I just moved upstairs to another room, to his old room. And so now all of us were living in this crappy house, and we started writing Black Sails like that day, I think.
We did, and we got the label. Remember, we got the label to give you $1,000?
Yeah, so I didn't have any money because I was obviously broke. And they're like, if we're going to be a band member full time, you can't have a job. So they got Dexter Holland, who was the head of the label, to send me $1,000, and I got this $1,000 check, and I was like, I'd never gotten a check that had 4 digits on it. So I was like, oh my God, this is the rock star life? $1,000 checks just arriving in the mail?
And we're all kind of looking at it. Wow, what's that like?
So I thought this is it, man. I can just life of leisure now. I got this $1,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Just live indefinitely on that.
Yep.
And we really could, because rent was probably $150.
That's the thing. Yeah. To keep the room, it was I think mine was the second most affordable in the place. I think mine was $260 or something like that a month. Yours was a little less, right?
Yeah.
We started writing Black Sails that day.
Yeah, immediately.
We sat up at the squat and wrote the first song, and it was
we wrote Malleus, right?
Yeah.
That day, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because you had it.
Yeah.
You had that.
I'd already written that song.
And you had that. The da-na-na-na-na-na.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it could have not worked out. We had never written songs together, and it could have been terrible, and we could have sat there banging our heads together trying to do something. But it was immediately so creative, and the synergy that we've had to this day.
Yeah. Jade went, na, 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 and I went, na, 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 na,
Yeah. And it was just
it's in a key that's not what I'm doing right now. Yes, I am a singer of this band.
And we started, it just worked.
Answer that. I'm very proud of you. And Shut Your Mouth. They all sound very different from one another, as did Black Sails. But Black Sails seemed to have a bigger impact with the shock of the difference in that, well, the owner of our record label didn't like it. I remember that. Yeah. He said, I don't get it. I said, all right.
Which is weird, because I think when we were recording Black Sails and writing, I don't think that any of us ever felt that it was a huge departure. I mean, it was good. It was, the Jade and Hunter writing and being involved made it. We were a stronger band, but it didn't seem like it was this huge change that
No.
people seemed to.
I remember thinking that God Called in Sick Today was like
Yeah, right.
the biggest difference.
I remember you didn't like that song. I remember when we played that, when I brought that to practice, you're like, I don't know, this is like too melodic. This is like a ballad. It's kind of like not what we do.
We hadn't done a ballad up to that
Yeah,
point.
we had not. We had not.
And I was really excited because it was the first time I could actually play a little bit slower because all of our early stuff is so fast. And it was.
Yeah, that was a really important song in that regard. And I actually vividly remember, I don't know if you remember this, and we never talk like this, really, in public. I remember when we sat down, you said, you know, I was thinking maybe, like, we should, like, put some of the melody back in the music. I don't know if you remember saying that. I vividly remember it because Shut Your Mouth had virtually no melody on it, vocally. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Let's do it. And we did. And there is, for Black Sails, you don't consider it a melodic album, but in comparison to Shut Your Mouth, it is.
We got kind of tagged with goth punk especially, and I think it wasn't necessarily
I mean, there's no
I think
such
it was
thing
kind
as
of like
that.
a backhanded insult.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's-
look at these guys, they're all gothy, like trying to play punk. And so it was kind of like almost like a derogatory thing. And then it just kind of became the thing because people would look and see that other people described us as that. So they thought that was how we were described. And so it kind of dogged us. It doesn't,
Yeah.
not as much anymore, but you'll still see it. So it kind of dogged us for like 10 years. It's like goth punk.
Yeah, and I mean, the term goth was like a strange derogatory term in the first place when that was applied to, you know, bands like Sisters of Mercy and The Cure and all those post-punk bands and, you know, I guess Sex Gang Children if, and that term really has no meaning. So they combine the two terms and, I mean, and it's hard to really define punk in the first place. So that's really esoteric and odd.
I guess no one likes how they're described ever. You ask any band, like people say you're this, and they'll be like, we're not that. We're like this other thing. And I think any band would probably say that. So